I just wanted to kind of pop into everybody's living room to say a few things, because I feel like today's kind of an auspicious day again. I'm going to jump off the cliff again, and I have some things from my heart that I want to share to a larger audience. And to the ladies, I want to say I have it very much on my heart to connect again with all of my friends in the area that Dennis and I knew from the bookstore from years, 25 years. There are some of the most amazing people, Christians, who, you know, just know and love the Father. So I just felt, because I don't want to be alone in this, you know, isolation is one thing, but we have with technology the ability to connect, and that's very important to me anyways, because I'm kind of alone. But if anybody knows, you know, Dennis and I, and it really came out at the funeral, it was such a beautiful time, and just reviewing Dennis's life and, you know, our life together and our boys was so crazy, and that's a whole, but it did bring back to us, and it did, that Dennis and I really did have a shared mission. One, the glue that, besides the glue of, you know, of God of the Father, of being, knowing that we were on the same page spiritually, we had this committed passion for the end times and for the scriptures and trying to understand. This is a very complex, it's called eschatology. It's complex, and we just spent years in studying and talking and things, and we were both convinced in our spirits that we were the last generation, that we had personally a part to play, and that this was going to unfold. And I never saw the fact that he was going to be taken out early. I always used to tell him, you know, honey, when things got really rough, I'm like, you know, there's no booking out early. Nobody, we're going to do this thing to the end together. Well, that's not exactly going to play out that way, but I'm going to have to continue on. And I know Dennis, I know that he's with me. We're still in the same journey together. So I want to reach out, especially to women that I know are absolutely spiritually minded, that love the Lord, that are 100% in, that are committed, that have a lot of knowledge and understanding. But there are some very large, and the best phrase is, inconvenient truths that have to be spoken. It's like the elephant in the room. And, you know, these things have to be spoken. And I've started to kind of say, we are in the end times. By every indication, by all of my research, a lot of the people that are like prophetic people that are tapped in out there, in both houses, let me tell you, Israel today is awash and with messianic fever, as they call it, and so are the Christians, so to speak. We all know something is up. We have entered a new season. There has been a shift, and this has to be addressed. But I'm reaching out to women, to you guys in particular, because I would like some friends to go along the journey. But there's a message for women in this, and this is what I want to say. This is, to me, we're going into very dangerous times. I mean, I'm not going to get specific per se, except this is what's called biblically the last days. And I want to explain to everybody what that means. It's not the end of the world, you know. It's a shift, but we'll get there. But one of the things that's going to become more and more important is to know the people that you're ministering with. All right, so we're the elect, we're the called out, we're the people of God, and we're prophetically, it says that we will be strong and do exploits in the last days. In Daniel. But it's important to know the people that you're going to run with, especially in dangerous times. Like if you pick, you know, if you align yourself with, you know, and you know, you could lose your life by aligning yourself with the wrong people in turbulent times. Now, what I'm trying to say is, what I'm doing is appealing to people who know me, who know Dennis, that we, by our fruit. Yeshua said very clearly, you will know them by their fruit. And I just have to say to people, I have no worldly credentials to say what I want to say. There's nothing in the world. I have no degrees per se. I am ordained as a minister with a very reputable and valid organization, but I don't practice in that per se. I realize I'm more just have like more of this teaching. I have this prophetic teaching burden that I need to speak. So I can't marry. I'm not going to marry anybody or do any of that, even though I legally could. But the thing is this is important to understand. It leads into my 2 points what I'm saying with women, because you will know them by the fruit. It's very important that we know the people that we're going to receive information from and trust. And that's one of the reasons today there's so much fake news. We don't know who these people are. We really don't know where, you look in the web, where their original source is, what their agenda is. It's very hard. But in terms of this, I'm saying that we've always loved the Lord. I mean, I'm not perfect, but in terms of dedication, holiness, study, consuming passion for this is fruit of the Spirit, and along with the gentleness, the kindness. All right, so that is something that is going to become more and more important when you pick leaders, when you pick groups you're going to follow as we go into dangerous times, because you want to be able to trust the people. So that being said, and the reason this is important, the early church stressed this. Paul was saying this. And this is really the admonition to the leadership in the local assemblies, is you need to know the people that minister with you, because many creep in unawares. This is important. Many people, come and will say, prophesy in his name and do great, but he'll say, in the end, I don't know you. So this is kind of important concept. But another issue that I just want to bring up. So I just appeal because I know you, and I'm hoping so that we can have a very elevated discussion about the issue of the last times, what the prophecies say, what our role is, and how it's all going to come down. One of the other things is there is a spirit today, definitely in the political camp. I mean, this is what, and it's very alive and well. It's a spirit, and this is the thing. We war against principalities, powers, spiritual wickedness. And Yeshua calls it Raqqa. In the Old Testament, actually, was going to go to that verse. There's not the Old Testament, the New Testament, in Matthew 5:22, Yeshua says, "But I tell you that anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to his brother Raqqa will be subject to the Sanhedrin, and anyone who says you fool will be subject to the fire of hell." Now, that's a really highly, this whole thing, Jewish concept, because it mentions the Sanhedrin in there. And I'm saying that, Jesus was a Jew. He was a Jewish teacher, rabbi, and his whole orientation and mindset was Hebraic. So he knew what he was saying. But this word Raqqa is it's an interesting word. It's an important word to understand. It's an Aramaic word, but then again, that because Yeshua spoke, it says he spoke in Aramaic because he spoke in the common language of the people. And people understand there's a difference between biblical Hebrew per se, but at the same time, Aramaic is an offshoot of Hebrew, but it's tailored more for people, just the way we talk normally. All right. But this word Raqqa, so that just to give you the context for that, but the word, it means, it's kind of along to, it's a level of anger when you start gnashing your teeth. And this is what's happening in the Republicans and the Democrats, they just gnash their teeth at each other. There's no dialogue. There's no solutions because there's no real, the level in our country, the war has gotten to the level where the devil has been able to divide us to such an extent that, and I really do put this kind of more on the left side because the things they say are on the level of Raqqa. What I mean is, okay, I was just told by somebody very, very close to me, expressing a political comment, oh, you're such a Nazi. And, okay, why don't you just go put your Klan robe on? And I'm like, hello? That's what I mean. I'm not a Nazi. I don't have I mean, this is very important, because what God is going to do when he starts shaking the nations that is coming in these judgments, he's trying to shake people out of their mindsets. All right. He's really trying to, it says every idol, every false thing, every high thing, everything that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, everything is going to come down. And the spirit of Raqqa is one where you don't even see the person in front of you. What you see is their ideology, and it's just, they're just on the devil, and, there's no getting around it. And that shuts down all discourse. And I'm like, well, if you look at me like that, then what have we got to talk about? I'm no longer Liz McGee to you. I'm some kind of, you see, that's very spiritual. That's how, and that's what Jesus was saying. He said there's a progression to this. Like, if you hate your brother, because it comes from the heart, you will, you're going to be subject to judgment, because the whole principle is you point one finger, it gets three back. So there's always judgment that comes back on you for falsely accusing someone. But then the point is, if it gets into a national level, like what we have today, unfortunately, we don't have a Sanhedrin, but the point is, if you continue on and you say you fool, you are subject to hellfire. The progression of this is that it leads to bloodshed. This spirit, everything's connected, this spirit of hatred will eventually lead to hatred, to bloodshed, and to all-out war. And this, look at our Civil War. I mean, some of the issues that were in front of people that day, it got to the point where, well, the only solution is, that is not God's way. Okay, he's a peacemaker. He's like, okay, you can do this thing the easy way, but a lot of times it gets done the hard way. So the whole point of this is, I have some things to say that I know are going to be inconvenient truths that are going to be very foreign, and it's going to kind of exacerbate. So what I want to say is, if you know me and my fruit, and you to get to the level of this discussion, because I am called, I'll just tell you, it's time. I have to stir people up. Somebody has to stir the pot and get people talking about the end times, getting people focused, listening, and if they want answers, there are places to go. So this, I want to warn, because as women, we are the keepers of our home. We are the keepers of the atmosphere. And a lot of times this spills over into our assemblies, but because, let me just say, one of the most obscure or arcane documents found in the Dead Sea Scrolls was this treatise called the War Scroll. And you read it, and it's like, what is this? Are they in literal war? What is the language saying? Or is it what? And I finally understood and realized that it is a war of polemics. When ideas clash, they're in the spiritual sense, it is sometimes like a war of words. And that's okay. You can keep things in a war of words as long as it doesn't spill over into Raqqa and into where you just you start calling people names, and then you just start, it just escalates really bad. We're called to have a unity. Even amongst our differences and how we don't all see things the same, we are still commanded to love each other and to exhibit a level of unity. And so that's what I'm feeling. But I want to go on to, Facebook Live this afternoon early, and just sort of say a couple more things, but because in this whole larger picture where we are, we're going into the end times. It's here. Yahweh Elohim is going to thresh the nations. That's what it is. We've entered a cycle. He is going to, he's going to keep hammering away and he's got plenty of resources at his disposal. One of them being, as we just, a plague that hits all the nations. So when they just say about the end times, one of the reasons called the end time, things happen, are going to go to like a biblical proportion. All right. He's not dealing with just one individual or family or a name. He's dealing with the whole world. This is it. Everybody is going to either kneel and confess and bow, or there'll be another outcome. So the whole message to the end times is two messages that are going out. One of them is, woe to the wicked if you continue in your sin, lawlessness, your stiff-neckedness, your refusal to acknowledge your Creator Father, to give God the glory and all this stuff. You're going to have a certain outcome and ending. But the other one is tell the righteous. And righteous is a word that should really also be translated right living, because you got to have right living. Those who are really following Elohim and trying to, as it says in Revelations, who believe in the Yeshua and keep the testimony of Moshe. That's another category of people, and it'll be well with them. It's going to be fine with us. I mean, I'm not saying crazy stuff isn't going to happen, but our security, the way we're going to feel the covering and the presence of Elohim is going to be the strongest than any other time in history. We're going to know our God, and He's going to show up, and He's going to do incredible things. So, that being said, what I've started to say and explain is that we are not Christians. That is not our biblical name. That is through history and the way things have gone and theology and everything. Okay, because I'll deal with that whole word Christians, or they were called Christians in and these things. But that's a Greek word. Everything, in my opinion, everything can get straightened out if you bring it back to the Hebrew, bring it back to those letters. The word is true. The word does not lie. The word can be counted on. And this is an important, so the word church, well, there's a whole, I'm going to do some on all that whole thing. But what I just want to say is what the Father is saying, and this is what the prophets are saying, and I think there are some pretty good prophets out there with track records. And this has been confirmed as far as I can in the research, and this has always been my understanding or my feelings. So like I said, so we're coming into a season of intense judgments. Let me say, this is something that's interesting. As I look at this, the Christians do not really, and I say that because, listen, my husband and I owned a Christian bookstore for 25 years. I kind of know the Christian mindset, all right? I have grown into what I consider to be a larger mindset, and that's just basically what I want to share. That, to me, makes all the difference in the world. But it's time for people to truly get on God's page, get their house in order, but we have to know who we are. The biggest identity theft that has ever happened is this concept where Christians do not know who they are. And we don't understand that if you want to find yourself in the Bible, you want to find your prophecies, you are the house of Israel, the house of Joseph, Ephraim, the northern kingdom, Samaria. These are all, these are code words. These are different words for the same group of people. Listen, these prophets were unbelievable. The level of the prophets in the Jewish, they're extremely intelligent people. I just want to say this. They don't just stick to one word. But anyways, the word for Jerusalem, just to tell you, there are over 70 different words the prophets use for Jerusalem. So if you didn't know that, you're only going to pick up that Jerusalem when they're talking is the city when they use it as Jerusalem. But Ariel, that's a word for Jerusalem. So when the prophet says, oh, Ariel, so these are things we don't know, but this is all information that can be gotten. But my point being, he is asking his people that are called by his name, it's all about coming home. It is time for all of us to do what's called in the Hebrew teshuvah. Teshuvah is Hebrew. It means to turn. Repentance, the first word or the first concept in repentance is to turn. All right. So we have to, and you do this in your mind. The first thing is in your mind, you start to turn. It's like, that might not be God. I must turn from that behavior. I must turn from that thought pattern. I must turn from that emotional. I can't have hatred or bitterness or anger or any of these things in my heart. This is what it's saying. So what does that mean? We need to, and this is all in the Hebrew, this is all in the prophecies, this is all delineated in the writings, not making anything up. There's very specific prophecies to the house of Judah and to the house of Israel as they unite, because we're going into what is called, Yahweh is resurrecting, raising up again the tabernacle of David, which what that means is David worshiped with all 12 tribes were together on the page as the temple was built and as they came together to worship Yahweh Elohim in the temple with the system that Yahweh had. And this is where we're going back. Now, there's a lot of levels, a lot of layers to this thing. It's the third temple, all these different things. But the point is, we're Hebrews. We're tribes. Father, Yeshua came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Like I said, that's a code word. That we're the lost sheep. We're coming back. But see, and I've said that the parable of the prodigal, that's about us, Christians, but we're not quite home yet. We have to come home to this concept of our heritage, and the only place you're going to find it is in Judah. Judah is the older. They've stayed in the house. They've kept the calendar. They've been doing the feasts. They have been, not perfectly. Nobody's perfect, but they have retained the national identity. They've retained the writings. They've retained the calendar and the feasts and all these things. That's who our God is. That's who we are, and we need to go back to that. So, and this is a huge movement. This is why I'm reaching out. I discovered this about 8-10 years ago, and it's like, and I've been checking it and double checking it and researching and going back, and there's no way. There's no other conclusion. Looking at it from history, looking at it from the writings, looking at it from, so many different, the Essenes, the whole Dead Sea Scrolls, this whole unbelievable library that pops out of the ground. What's the point of that? But there's 3 things I'd like to do, specifically in this for myself and all of us, that there's a couple quick things that we can do, and as women, as the women keepers of the house, the home individually, but there's a larger meaning to that. Your home, like our church home, our family, the atmosphere. That's why I said Raqqa. We have to really keep the dialogue calm, civil, loving, as we all try to explore together. Hey, is what Liz saying? Is there any truth in it? Well, but it's important, because we will completely destroy our witness, and we will destroy each other. It's what it says, And like I said, the final outcome can be a civil war, and there's even talk on the horizons. I listen to some of these public radios, and I'm like, how can you people talk at that level? That's scary. All right? It's scary. We have to really keep level heads. But women, one of the things in our homes, what can you do specifically? And such a confirmation this morning. Was talking to Jean. I love her. I have so many sisters I reconnected with. But really, what can you do practically? All right, so I'm going to, on the women of the elect life, I'd like to start loading. It's quick, different books, reading lists, safe sites, educational sites, books, trusted Torah teachers, people that to kind of start. If you believe this, if you're even curious, to kind of get on the road back. But also, I also teach people to know a deep, what's called in Hebrew, the sod level, a very deep mystical. Well, it's not even the word. It's a level of understanding, and I love to teach anybody where really the prophecies are hidden. They're very deeply embedded. It's when you understand Hebrew and how it's coded and subset. It's the most amazing language. I still just am in awe of it, but that's another subject. But what the Jews do is every week there is what's called a Parsha. They put out, this is exactly where the Christian, I think the Catholic Church got this idea of the lexicon, where you read the Bible through in a year. But they didn't invent that. That comes totally from the tradition of the house of Judah and from the time of Ezra, the second table, and that they would keep they read through the scriptures in a year, in a cycle, and everybody's on the same page in a sense. But the revelations, this is a huge unifier practically, because if I could take the time to show people what the Parshas were when we just went through Passover, it would blow your mind. Like, we're speaking so clearly in these things. And okay, so it's a practical tool. And I'll put a link on a website so in your daily devotions, instead of like, oh, what should I read, or coming up with, if we all got on the same page, Jews and Christians together, starting reading the Parshas and trying to get the collective, get the mind of Elohim on this, that would be huge. And it's one of the best ways. So that's just a subject, but I'm going to start posting, the weekly Parshas. You can break them down into days. There's readings, and then there's a Sunday or a Sabbath reading. That's very important. But in this whole concept of, equipping the saints, because, the days are evil. I think I got to come back to a point, because we in our houses, I told you time of Passover, I'm trying to explain the feast. There are certain things that it's not even in my opinion. This is God's, he is the one who set this up. If you want to be on Yahweh's page, he said the feasts of the Lord are eternal ordinances for all the children of Israel in all the generations. Now, I didn't write it. That's what it says. No way getting around it. But women, we can come back. We can do a second Passover. It's incredible, this whole thing. May 8th, there's a whole, it's like Yahweh put another exemption date in there, and it's falling on May 8th this year, and everybody could do a second Passover, which is a hugely important. We're to do these not ritualistically. That's not the point. Is to remember, to observe, to do, to. Yeshua did the Passover Seder with his disciples before his death, and he said, do this, keep doing this in remembrance of me. He was remember the Passover, because this is hugely important to our storyline, especially where we are today. We're coming up on the last Passover, and this time when this happens, we really will pass over resurrectionally. But so to just throw dates out there, if you want to, you can start to come to the Parsha. Just check it out in your home and encourage your kids. If you're home homeschooling and do the Parsha with your kids. You can prepare for the second Passover. You can, what is happening is the counting of the Omer is beginning, which is a count 50 days from the end of the Feast of First Fruits. And where you count 50 days to Shavuot, which is Pentecost. So if we could, begin to get a grip on these things and begin to incorporate them into our homes, discuss them calmly and quietly with our husbands and children, the spiritual life, that's huge. It's been happening in huge numbers out there, but it's starting to happen exponentially now, I think, in the church. The harvest is here. A lot of the harvest is part of getting people back into the, remember, he gathers the wheat into his barn. Allegorical way of saying he's trying to get his people back into his safe space, his page, what he wants us to do, and so these are just practical things. And as women on a journey together, I think it'd be great. I mean, I get jealous sometimes. I really do, because they have such an incredible, doing this keeps you such coherence in your family life. It gives you such great things. There's such an element of preserving family and traditions and shared memories and it's served them for exile, over for 2,000 years, and before that, they have preserved themselves there, and that's one of the ways they did it. And the Father did that for a reason. Okay, everything has a very practical purpose to it. we don't. So these are just things that I want to leave with you guys. I am going to go on Facebook Live again at noontime, and I'm going to try to reach a larger community of women and of anybody on my Facebook feed. And if you're interested, share it or get it, because this has to go out as a larger message. Because the saints of Elohim, when you go into battle, you need some marching orders, right? I mean, that's the whole point. The shofar has to sound, the trumpet has to sound, so people know to get ready for battle, to marshal themselves, and then they need to come to a place. This would be all very literal in Israel at the time. And then, according to tribes, that they would get their marching orders, and this is exactly what's going on allegorically, spiritually right now. People have been prepared. Believe me, if you're here, I believe you're prepared. You have a mission and a destiny and an anointing and a ministry, everything. And it's time for all of us to kind of be able to move out with confidence and with authority. And in my opinion, there is an element that knowledge is power. This is why we teach his school, because they will be able to be equipped to deal with life if you get a certain level of education, all right? The same thing for us. So that's what I'm about, all right? I didn't want to I just wanted to come out and say that. I want to say, it's a beautiful day. We have 2 good days in a row. Praise Hashem. Spring is here. It is coming. And I don't think we're going to get out of lockdown per se. This is not going away. It's not going to go back to normal. We are in a cycle where Yahweh Elohim is dealing with us individually, corporately, as a nation, and as his people. And, you can hide your head in the sand, whatever. But actually, part of me is terrified, but part of me is absolutely exhilarated. So this is what, we've all been waiting for. So on that note, shalom, shalom. And I hope, to continue dialogue and see you at noon.